Hello, everybody. So we are live now. Welcome. I'm Dr. Talia Marcajani, and this is a Good Mood Project Facebook group. And I'm here live just to answer some questions that you have and to talk about self-care and self-isolation and to help us connect a little bit more in our group. And so I'm waiting for some people to join. This is one of those things going live. I haven't been live in a while. It's one of those things where you're like, I hope nobody watches me do this live. And then, I see somebody's watching. And then, after a few minutes of recording, you're like, how come nobody's watching me live? So I'm happy that at least one person's on the call. And so as you guys join the call, this is going to be posted in the group. So feel free to rewatch, if you can't catch this live. I don't know how long I'm going to talk for. Maybe it could be 20 minutes, could be an hour, just depending on what questions come up or what things and themes show up. And we're going to do more of these if this works for you. And if you find this is a helpful resource during this time to answer questions and to support you in your self-care. And, I know that a lot of you joined this group because of the Cortisol Care Challenge. So answering any questions you have about that and how that challenge and some of the things that you're learning or applying may be helpful during these times is something that we can definitely talk about. And so as you're joining, feel free to fire questions. I'm not sure about the Facebook Live formats. Oh, don't touch your face. I'm not sure about the Facebook Live formats these days, but I'll see if I can answer any questions as we go and things that we're going to talk about. So I have some notes here because basically what sparked this idea was I asked how I can support some of you, and I also sent an email to my list about that. And one of the things that came up, one of the questions was how do I stop eating all the time? And it's these things, right, that we don't really necessarily think about. And actually the person who asked that in the group, and then other people chimed in I have this problem too. And the thing is that sometimes it's these quote unquote little things that are bugging us and are contributing to these impacts on our mental health that we think might be silly or not in the grand scheme of things. And everything that the world is going through, we think that's kind of a small detail. I don't even know if this is relevant or something important to talk about. But it's actually something that's been coming up a lot. I was listening to the podcast, The Drive with Peter Attia, who's one of my sources right now for learning about sort of the what the medical community is talking about in terms of COVID-19. And so he's one of my sort of trusted sources that I'm going to and listening to his podcast yesterday. And he and the person that he's interviewing are discussing this is the first time I'd polish off a whole pizza, in years. And I just find myself I think Peter was saying something about how, he's potty training his son and his son is getting M&Ms for doing what he's supposed to do with potty training. And Peter's just just take a handful. So we're noticing these changes in our eating habits, and sometimes it's upsetting, especially if you're trying to follow a plan or if these changes in your eating habits are affecting your physical health. But I want to say, and so this is a very common thing, and there's memes going around the internet being this is me in quarantine, or working from home equals working from the fridge. But I want to first say that this is not about, correcting or suggesting that this is wrong or that you're bad or that we're trying to fix this or this is something that we need to shift. There was a great post on my Instagram feed that I saw from one of my colleagues, and she was saying, and she's a bodybuilder and lifts weights and does competitive fitness and is all about the gym. And as you know, all of our gyms are closed, at least in Toronto and probably across the world. And she was saying, no, I haven't built a home gym. I'm going out for walks outside, and I know that my body will be ready to pick up where we left off, and this is just a shift that we're experiencing. So I want to put that out there too, that even if you're noticing you're eating more than normal, or you're eating foods that you wouldn't normally pick up, knowing that your body will bounce back or you can get back on track, and that these are uncertain and destabilizing times. And so if you're noticing that shifts are happening to your routine and habits, it's okay. It's not going to last forever. And we don't necessarily need to correct that, but I want to bring this up and I want to have these conversations and just talk about these kind of things. So one of the things, there's a few reasons though why we might notice that these shifts in our eating habits are happening, and it's not because we're weak or there's issues with willpower, any of that kind of thing. So a big part of it is the anxiety, and a lot of you have spoken to that there's this general sense of anxiety, and many of us already suffer from anxiety, and maybe at this heightened level of fight or flight response already. And oftentimes when we're very anxious, it suppresses our appetite. It makes it difficult for us to eat. So we feel sort of like our whole digestive system shuts down, and we might feel nauseous, or you can't get food in and you can't digest. This is usually when our anxiety levels are like quite high. So you're, maybe have that anticipatory anxiety, like you're bordering on panic. But when we're dealing with, and for most of us, this is going to be the level that we're dealing with, it's kind of a generalized sense of uncertainty. Like you're aware that you're safe in your home, really this is something we're collectively doing as a global society to keep the spread of disease down. So it isn't that there is this immediate active threat to your safety, right? So this isn't the saber-toothed tiger in the woods. These are general precautions that we're all taking to stay safe. And so what that does to our nervous system is it doesn't necessarily put us in a full-out fight or flight state. It puts us in this like baseline, uncertain, kind of anxious state. And one of my colleagues called it feeling jangly, and I love that because it is really that, it's like that low-level jittery nervousness that you might feel in your stomach. This sort of anticipation, things are moving really fast. We're shifting our entire businesses online. Some people are in financial uncertainty, and so there's a lot happening really quickly. We're only in Thursday of this week, and for me, waking up on Monday, not a lot had shifted, and then Tuesday everything was completely different, and then yesterday too, like it seems like every single day there's big shifts happening. And so this sense of just like low level anticipation actually drives up our hunger response. It gives us that sort of like nervous stomach feeling that can actually contribute to us wanting more food, or actually an increase in appetite. So whereas, just to reiterate, when we talk about like full-on anxiety, you're in the full-on fight or flight response, which many of you may be in as something that you're already dealing with, or in that full-on anxiety state, we're gonna like potentially notice appetite suppression. But we're in this like jangly, low-level anxiety. It actually drives up our appetite and our cravings for sugar. And our cortisol levels are going to be a little bit higher during this time, but not necessarily our fight or flight hormones that give us that like high. So this is one of the reasons why you might notice yourself reaching for more snacks, reaching for more sugar to kind of calm and ground your body, because eating will push us into our rest and digest state. So having food in our stomach will sort of get our digestive juices flowing. The other thing too is, right, our routines are different. So again, like I said before, it's like, for me, working from home is AKA working from the fridge, right? So it's like when you're going to the office every day, you're packing a lunch, you're probably distracted, you're following your colleagues when they go and take their lunch break. Maybe you're reaching for snacks at the times that everybody's going for a snack. And then you're working from home, and this is probably for a lot of you a relatively new thing. And you're seeing, I'm just kind of not necessarily following meal times, and I'm, in order to take breaks, I'm sort of going to the fridge to check out what's there. I'm reaching for snacks I know are there. And then noticing that, it's difficult to kind of distract and to kind of manage your routines around food and other things as well. There's also the boredom that comes from social isolation, and so a lot of us will reach for food as a way to stimulate and get a hit of dopamine when we can't access that from novel experiences, novel situations, such as even just going outside and doing different things, or having things to look forward to, or spending time with people, or having people around. So this boredom potentially is going to contribute to us doing some self-soothing in the form of consuming foods. And then loneliness, of course, is another thing, right? So anytime you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. We call that acronym HALT. Those 4 conditions set us up for any sort of emotionally driven behavior. And this is usually applies to addictions, but it can also happen with emotional eating or doing any kind of behaviors that we engage in for self-soothing. But the first thing I want to say is that, the final thing about that too is that, especially with the news and the general sense of what people are up to in the world, when we talk about like hoarding toilet paper and hoarding food, and this general sense of uncertainty and scarcity, you can see it manifesting in how people are behaving in grocery stores. Our body picks up on that. And during these sort of uncertain times, our body is picking up on this need to hoard, to accumulate, and to store. And so this is actually your body's intelligence just saying, like, maybe I need more resources during this time. I don't know what's going to happen. And remember that our bodies are set up to survive famine conditions. And it's only been in the last few decades, 100 years even, where food scarcity in our society has not been an issue for our bodies. And so our body really evolved to deal with food scarcity, and that's one of the main things that it's concerned with when it comes to any sort of stress. And so noticing an increase in appetite, a little bit of weight gain, is something that's totally normal for your body to want to do during this time. So that's another thing I want to say too. We see that on a societal level of people like accumulating food and stocking up on supplies, and we see that in an individual biological level with our bodies being like, maybe I need to hold on to things and to store. But the first thing I want to say, and when we're talking about all of these things, the first thing I want to recommend is self-compassion. So self-compassion comes in 3 steps. And this is developed by a woman called Kristen Neff. Self-compassion, it helps us accept what's happening in this moment, to give ourselves a little bit of space and freedom from self-criticism and judgment, and this idea that things should be one way or another. I should be sticking to my keto diet. I should be intermittent fasting. I shouldn't be eating mini eggs or all my rations or whatever. Self-compassion gives us this, it helps us step a little bit more into ourselves and into a more loving place with ourselves, a more understanding place with ourselves. So the 3 steps of self-compassion are, number 1, acknowledging your internal state. And this may come as a sentence that you say to yourself, such as, I'm feeling anxious right now, or I'm feeling bored right now, or I'm feeling hungry right now. I'm feeling a craving for sugar right now. Just stating something about how you're feeling. And what that requires is for us to recognize how we're feeling and to name it. So that's actually a very big step, even though it seems quite small. The second step for self-compassion is to bring in common humanity. These experiences, and so all of us have the same body and we all have the same brain. And it's, I am a naturopathic doctor. I believe in individual medicine and individual approaches to health, and there's no one size fits all, and everything depends. And but we really there are a few things that we actually struggle with on our own. Chances are, no matter what difficulty you're facing, what thoughts or emotions or circumstances you're facing, there's somebody else in the, 8 billion people on this planet who has or is currently dealing with the same thing or similar thing. And so the second step of self-compassion is to say, everybody eats mini eggs, or everybody gets pissed off, or everybody breaks their intermittent fast, or everybody feels this way. Or if everybody feels like too big a word or doesn't feel authentic enough, a lot of people, you can say, a lot of people. So step 1 is acknowledging. Step 2 is bringing in a common humanity with a sentence like, everybody feels this way, or feeling bored, feeling hungry, feeling anxious, feeling tired, overeating is part of life, or undereating. The third is to set an intention for kindness to ourselves. And, ideally it would be like, I love and accept myself unconditionally. But it's not always accessible for a lot of us who are on this path to self-love and self-compassion and self-acceptance. And so choosing something that feels more authentic. When I brought this up to my mindfulness-based cognitive therapy group in one of my training sessions, I said I have a lot of trouble with self-kindness and self-compassion because it feels sometimes inaccessible. And what I was told, which I found very useful, was it's not about feeling those emotions or having the access to that right away. It's about, in a lot of cases, setting the intention to feel that way. And that just shifts our consciousness a little bit more. So it would be something like, may I set the intention to be kind to myself, or may I be kind to myself in this moment? Okay, so 3 steps. Step number 1, acknowledging acknowledging behaviors, emotions, feelings, thoughts that are occurring in this moment, such as I'm feeling anxious right now, I am feeling hungry right now, I'm feeling like I want to eat all the mini eggs, or I ate all the mini eggs, I feel guilty right now, whatever it is. And number 2, bringing in common humanity. Everybody overeats mini eggs at some point. I'm not a bad person, or I'm not like this, lone wolf in this. And number 3 is setting an intention for self-compassion and self-kindness. May I be kind to myself. Sometimes that 3rd step, it's really helpful to place a hand on the heart. And what this does is it releases oxytocin. And anytime we're engaged in touch with other people and even with our own bodies, we get a release of a hormone called oxytocin, which helps us stay more loving and more connected. So self-compassion is super important during this time in general, but also for this specific question, because you're not a bad person if you are overeating or, breaking your diet or any of that, okay? Now, when it comes to what can we actually do to help this, so we talked a little bit about what are some of the reasons that we might notice this phenomenon, and what we can do. A big thing is and this is something that's going to evolve over the next few days, I believe, even next few weeks, is to settle into some new routines. So chances are you had routines for school, for work, in your daily life, with your social interactions, with your exercise routines, with the ways that you prepared food and cooked food and consumed food. Now, those routines have totally shifted. You can't do a lot of the things that you probably relied on just a few days ago. And so what is important to do right now, or what I suggest doing right now, is to really start creating new routines. This could look very different for all of you. And, some people, it's been suggested before to actually pack your lunch, to take scheduled breaks, especially going outside. And you can go outside unless you're actually quarantined and you have specific circumstances for that. I mean, well, even if you are quarantined, you can still go outside a little bit. But keeping your 2-meter distance from people, washing your hands before you leave the house and once you get back, and avoiding touching surfaces, avoiding coughing into your hands. But taking a break where you step outside, go for a walk, and get a little bit of a break. Establishing new routines with connection with people. So, whereas before I would rely on text messaging and then going to see people in person, now it's like doing WhatsApp messages. Thank you for the like. People are out there. You guys are out there. It's about, now maybe leaving WhatsApp voicemails or actually FaceTiming people. I've been doing so much video conferencing these last few days. I'm sure a lot of you guys have too. So it's really about accessing or harnessing technology to serve us during this time. And I'm super grateful. I've been so grateful for technology these last few days. It's been really great to be able to use these resources that we have to continue to stay connected. So the self-care or the cortisol care challenge, we talk a lot about blood sugar regulation, and this is very important right now. And so one of the things to manage cravings and that hunger that comes with that jangly feeling is we talked about this on day 3 of the cortisol care challenge, so rewatch it, or if you're not part of that challenge, join the list and grab the link. It's definitely somewhere in our discussion, and jump in on the challenge. Day 3, we talk about regulating our blood sugar, and the most important thing for that, I would say at this time, is to increase protein consumption. Make sure that you're eating enough protein. Now, one of the things that will happen if we're not getting enough protein is we start to crave more sugar and carbohydrates. We just feel like we're constantly kind of in that grazing mode. I actually had a great conversation with a patient a few weeks back where she was discussing, and we were actually talking about things in the context of her office, but we were discussing how she says at 10 a.m., I tell myself I'm not going to eat the cookies that they put out in the afternoon in the office. And I feel like I could do that. And I tell my coworkers and I establish accountability, and I'm not going to eat those sugary cookies. I'm got this under control. 10 a.m. I tell myself that. And then she says, by 4 p.m. though, the cookies are out and I'm eating them. And she says it feels horrible because it feels like I'm breaking integrity with myself. It feels like I don't have any control. It feels like I'm, my willpower is decreasing, and then I eat the cookies and I feel not great, And she's like, and I now have made the commitment that I'm not going to tell myself I won't eat them at 10 a.m. because that's the way that I can align myself in integrity, because I'm telling myself something at 10 a.m. and then at 4 p.m. I'm doing something else, and that doesn't feel right to me. And that, for me, that makes sense. And what I said to her was, this is not about willpower. This is not about your moral virtue. It's not about your ability to restrict yourself from cookies. This is not what this is about, and this is not what is happening here. What's happening here is that at 10 a.m. you've had your breakfast, and your blood sugar is, because in the morning we manage our blood sugar much better generally. You've had your breakfast, it's 10 a.m., you're not hungry, and you're not craving, and you're not exhausted. You still have a lot of your energy reserves. You still have dopamine in your prefrontal cortex that's helping you with decision making and willpower. And when I say willpower, I mean like our ability to make decisions and to sort of manage our behaviors. Come 4 p.m., you are probably a little bit hungry, right? So then avoiding cookies is out of the question, because if you're also hungry, it's over, right? Like, because you want to eat. And so what are you going to eat? The most exciting thing to eat, which is right there. So you're hungry. Your blood sugar is less well managed because now we're talking, it's, in the afternoon. It's been a few hours since you ate your lunch. You're also tired, and your prefrontal cortex is depleted. So your willpower, your decision-making potential is depleted. So how do we get that back on track? We got to set you up. So we got to get rid of the idea of like trying to avoid sugar, avoid the cookies, or this willpower, this repression, this forceful sort of withholding, almost like I always talk about it, like holding a beach ball underwater. It requires force, it requires pressure, and you can maybe maintain that for a certain amount of time, but as soon as you let go, it pops back up. What we want to do is create circumstances that don't rely on us making constant decisions. So the first thing is to make sure that you're well nourished and well fueled, and this is protein. Right? So when we take away the hunger component, things are just so much better. And a cookie becomes a cookie. It doesn't become like, I need to eat this because I need to recalibrate my neurochemistry. And so we said, consume protein at lunch, consume protein in the morning as we talked about, and then consume a protein-rich snack in the afternoon too. So you're scheduling in your protein. So a couple handfuls of pumpkin seeds, can of sardines, hummus and carrots. Right, we talked on day 3 about like tracking your protein intake and looking at those protein sources in the handout. And so really applying that, making sure that you're getting protein. And you may still go for the sugary treat, but it won't be out of hunger. It'll be maybe out of pleasure, interest, or something else, or giving yourself a treat, but it won't be out of hunger. And so 99% of the time we consume less of that sugar. We feel more control around it, and we're consuming it for reasons that aren't this physical hunger and needing to restore our blood sugar levels, because our blood sugar is already managed and we're already nourished. So it's a big part of this. So eating protein, I would say, especially around this time, is sticking to your 80 to 90 grams. Again, like there's a bit of individuality around that. If you feel that at 80, 90 grams it's just too much for you, that's okay. But really exploring increasing your protein amount. And I encourage you to track on MyFitnessPal or Chronometer, just looking at protein, seeing what you're getting, and seeing how that sets you up for less cravings, less hunger, and actually how that leads to you feeling more grounded and stable, especially mentally and emotionally, not just physically. getting outside is a big part of it. Hello, Tam. Hi there. Getting outside is a big part of it. So again, like talking about how, we're trying to recreate routines and figure out what we need. And, it's really important for us to be managing our mental health at this time. And so still connecting with people, harnessing technology to do that, still moving our bodies. It may not be going to the gym or lifting heavy weights or doing exercise routines or classes, but there are so many free yoga resources, free workout resources you can do from home. But, I actually have a lot of trouble doing workouts from home, again, because of that willpower, that decision thing. Like, if you have to make all the decisions when it comes to exercise, it's more difficult. So I'm just going for walks. I'm taking my dog out a few times a day, going for long walks, staying away from close proximity to people, going by the lake, doing that kind of thing. So I'm scheduling in breaks, getting some fresh air. It feels really good to be outside and moving my body. And so I'm doing that, and that's helping with avoiding that sort of like boredom, loneliness feeling that can lead to overeating. All right, guys, so that's what I have to say about that. Let me know if you have any more questions. I'm going to post this in the group so you can keep watching it. If you have any more questions about things, if you want to talk immune support, self-care, mental health, any stuff that you're noticing, like this was a perfect question because honestly, it's something that people are dealing with for some of the reasons that I led the video with. We're all kind of like we have all this food that we were told to stock up on in our fridge, and now we're just hanging out at home, stressed out about money and the world and everything that's going on. A lot of us have trips or events that were canceled that we were looking forward to, and now we sort of feel that lull. And really just all of these feelings are so new because all these circumstances have just recently changed. And so this is totally normal. It's totally normal to feel like your routines are shot. Know that nothing is going to last forever. This too shall pass. I think this is a great quote that came, that somebody posted. I was asking for quotes. And it will. Your body will get back on track. Your routines will get back on track. We're going to find new and novel ways to readapt. Because one of the things that we humans do really well is we adapt to circumstances. And one of the things that helps us... Hi, Tam. Thank you for coming on live. Thank you for joining me on live and for commenting so I don't feel so alone up here. Yes, that was you. Yes, exactly. Yeah, that was you that said this too shall pass. So, reach out here. Ask for, how I can support you. I want to, get this group active and participating, if that's a helpful resource for you to have. And I really encourage you to revisit day 3 of the challenge if you're having questions about sugar cravings and blood sugar. Again, knowing that all of this is normal and it's not just you dealing with this. And any way that we can be kinder to ourselves or connect with each other could be really helpful for getting through this. Because, a lot of us, well, not just the uncertainty of the situation and everything the world's going through, but the isolation is really tough on us. And so, any way that we can combat that and manage that and work together could be really helpful. So let me know what you guys need, how I can support you. Hi, Maria. Thank you. And ask your questions below. We can address them. I can go live again tomorrow. What we have right now is time. So let me know what you need and how I can support you. And if you have questions about any of this or new questions. And no question is silly. It was a great question to lead with. Thank you, Zainab. Yes, it was you that was brave enough to throw it out into the group. So thank you so much for asking. Totally normal. All of my seaweed snacks from Costco are officially gone. So, and somebody actually said, it's funny that you mentioned mini eggs specifically because mini eggs are the thing that I am polishing off these days. So it could be anything. So let me know, how I can support you again. All right, guys, take care. Have a great Thursday afternoon, and I might see you live again tomorrow. All right, let me know what you want me to cover. We can do meditation. We can do a book club. That was something that I thought of, or actually somebody suggested. And, even just reading a book together that we discuss, it could be on any topic, I think could be really helpful. It's something that we could do as a group, something that can take our minds off this constant talk about viruses and immune system. But if you want me to talk immune system, we can talk that too. All right, so thanks for coming on, everybody. Take care. Have a great day. I'm going to go eat my lunch. Bye.